Would you say that overall this strategy has been a success?
Well, John, yeah. I mean, overall, yes. That doesn't mean that there haven't been areas of setback, as we saw in Ramadi.
I mean, is it exporting terror to Libya, taking over the capital of Iraq's largest province? This is overall a success.
That seemed to go well. The White House is scrambling now to contain the damage, but images of ISIS now flying flags all over Ramadi certainly are not helping. Reports now that ISIS is going door to door, killing police and pro-government forces to sort of rub the point in. To Fox's Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon with the very latest. Hey, Jennifer.
Neil, U.S. intelligence officials are investigating whether the ISIS leader and his wife, targeted in a Delta Force operation this weekend, were involved in kidnapping American hostage Kayla Mueller. A high-value interrogation group sent from the U.S. to Iraq plans to interrogate Sayyaf, whose husband was killed during the U.S. Special Operations raid this weekend. I'm told they will ask the terror leader's wife about what she knew about ISIL's hostage operations, amidst reports that the wife was involved with her husband in holding and abusing Mueller, who was pronounced dead in February. Meanwhile, after the fall of Ramadi to ISIS, Pentagon sources confirm a key factor that ISIS took advantage of in recent weeks was using sandstorms as cover to move into the city. They know that U.S. overwatch from drones is hindered by weather conditions such as sandstorms. Of course, the Pentagon did not expect the Iraqi security forces to again pull out without a fight.
This is a huge blow to the effort to defeat ISIS and a major blow to everyone who gave so much, who turned that country around. Ramadi's also significant, Megan, because it's where the Anbar awakening started, the precursor to the Iraq surge that gave the entire country hope.
The Pentagon says hundreds of American military vehicles, as well as artillery provided by the U.S. to the Iraqi government, fell into ISIS hands when Ramadi fell. The Pentagon says it has no plans to change strategy. Senator Lindsey Graham has called for 10,000 U.S. troops to do so. The Iraqis are consulting with the Iranians, meanwhile. Neil?
Jennifer Griffin, thank you. Meanwhile, it's a former Navy SEAL, Carl Higbee, who fought in Ramadi and is now watching it all unravel. And this has got to be gut-wrenching for you.
It's disgusting. I mean, you look at these bureaucrats in Washington, they're fighting this war like they'd run a re-election campaign. We have to send soldiers in there and listen to what soldiers say, if we're going to win this war.
All right, when you say soldiers, obviously Americans hear boots on the ground. They think Vietnam, they think quagmire, they think getting bogged down. What do you say?
I've been calling for boots on the ground since day one. You can't effectively execute airstrikes without proper intel on the ground from ground troops. Now, we can bomb all we want over there, and if we don't get guys over there gathering the intelligence in order to find these targets, it's going to be useless.
Carl, you've heard this question asked of all these candidates.
Right.
Do you think it was worth it?
Yes.
Why?
If I could make the same decision again, even knowing what I know now, yes. Because look at every time we don't do something, I said in my book that if we don't keep a residual force there, there's going to be a power vacuum, and then we're going to be forced to go back in there in under a decade. We're here in 3 years now, so I think absolutely you're going to have to commit a lot of resources to take it back and sustain a large force over time there, and that's just the way this part of the world works.
So when you hear the likes of Rand Paul and others, question what we did and whether it was worth it, versus someone like a Marco Rubio says the world is better off with Saddam Hussein, whatever has come afterwards, what do you think?
Rand Paul is wrong. We need to be there, and if we don't be there, there will be a power vacuum, and we'll see another murderous dictator rise up. I know we put Saddam in power, but these people only speak dictator, so if we're not there to somehow perpetuate some type of democracy, it's just going to fall back into a dictator hands. It'll be a cesspool of terrorism.
What do your buddies say who were there with you in Ramadi and remember, well, how the blood and the sacrifice?
They're mad. I mean, we're all mad. I mean, we put a lot of millions and millions of dollars, thousands of lives into holding this country, as Ramadi is a huge stake in that because it's on a main supply line, major city. The amount of resources we have dumped into it also is unparalleled, and unfortunately now the ISIS fighters still have that.
Why do they have that momentum? And they were doing a little bit of picture gloating today. Not afraid to show their faces, and just rub it into our faces.
Well, I think this emboldens them. And like we killed the guy in Syria. I mean, we can't continue to trade one bad guy that our special forces go in and kill for one city turning over to ISIS. Right now, it's just that they are so emboldened by the fact that they've been able to do this as far as they were. And Baghdad will be next. And when Baghdad falls, it's going to set the precedent because...
You say when, not even if.
When, very soon, I think, because Ramadi is a staging point for that. And if Baghdad falls, that's going to be very hard for us to take the country back.
Carl, we you guys, trained a lot of these guys, these Iraqi soldiers. And I take nothing against them, and maybe they just weren't up to the fight or up to the challenge or trained enough. But boy, they ran fast. And I'm beginning to wonder, and I'm not making an indictment of all the Iraqi soldiers, whether they're up to the task of defending Baghdad, of defending greater Iraq, and whether this is going to be like a fall of Saigon thing all over.
Well, look, Neil, we went in there and we trained these guys for a decade. And if they couldn't turn around and defend their country after a decade of training, they're not going to be able to do it after another decade of training.
So why should we?
So the fact is, we just need to commit long-term occupancy to that. It's an unfortunate truth. And if we want this place to be stable in any way, shape, or form, it's going to require
you're a young
resources.
guy, I'm a slightly older guy, but it's never been stable. It's always been accessible.
It is. It's the cradle of civilization. They're still living in mud huts. I mean, it's not a
So I guess what I'm asking you cynically, and you're the hero here, the war hero, a genuine one, and I read a prompter, so forgive me for sounding disrespectful. Do you think that people look at this and say, good times, bad times, Republican presidents, Democratic presidents, whatever the cause, we just get knee-deep in a mess?
It is a mess, and unfortunately the only way to get out of this mess is to kill a lot of bad guys, and that's not going to look pretty on some politician's resume, but that is the only way to defeat any type of terrorism.
But why not leave it to the Saudis and these guys who always blame us for not being there when it's their neighborhood?
They won't do it, and what will happen is it'll just become a larger and larger and larger problem, and then it'll be facing us on our own shores.
Are you troubled then by this division among Republican candidates who seem to be tripping over themselves to absolve themselves of responsibility for a mess they claim was the other president's doing?
Look, you can sit here and armchair quarterback all you want. I think President Bush did the right thing with the right information at the right time, and I would go back in and do it again, and I think he would too.
And do you think that the candidate who said that wouldn't suffer for saying that, or he would?
There's a growing division in this country on both sides, for two parts Republican, two parts Democrat, of what should we do? Should we fight this war? Should we let the locals fight it? And I think the fact is, we're just going to come down to a major point in the election here, and you're going to have people who don't want to fight this war be faced with serious consequences if we don't continue to put resources towards it.
Real quickly, Donald Trump,
Yes, sir.
people said at the beginning, we should have taken the oil, held the oil, taught him a lesson. No one's going to help us with this, but that would have stopped the money and the spigot of cash that ISIS is enjoying now. What do you think?
There's a reason Donald Trump has been successful as he has in business, because he is cut and dry, to the point, no BS. And I think that that would have been a large part in our favor if he had been in charge when that decision had to come down.
Wow. Carl, very good seeing you again.
Thanks, sir.
Continued success. In the meantime, message to the media calling this gang a clown car. I think someone called these guys the same exact thing, and I think one of them became president.